I heard them talking about my house before they even knew I was conscious. The doctor had left maybe 10 minutes earlier. I remember the door swinging shut, that particular hospital sound, the soft thud of it, and then my son's voice coming through the wall from the hallway. Not through the door, through the wall. The old building, the thin plaster, whatever it was, I could hear every word. The appraisal came back higher than we thought, he said. And then my daughter-in-law's voice, lower, but I still caught it. We should call the realtor before the weekend. No point waiting. I kept my eyes closed. I don't know why. Maybe some instinct. The kind you don't think about, you just follow. I had been in that hospital bed for 11 days. A car accident on Route 9, a wet Tuesday in November. A truck that ran a red light and hit my driver's side door. They told me later my heart had stopped twice. That I had 3 broken ribs, a punctured lung, and a skull fracture above my left ear. That it was, in the words of one young resident who clearly hadn't learned yet not to say things like this to patients, a miracle I was still here. My son visited twice in 11 days, my daughter-in-law once. She brought flowers that she set on the windowsill without looking at me and left after 7 minutes. I counted. I had nothing else to do. My neighbor Helen came every single day. She's 72. She has bad knees, and she took the bus. She would sit in the plastic chair by my bed and tell me about her garden, about the news, about the cardinal that kept coming back to her feeder. She never once looked at me like I was already gone, but my son and his wife were making plans about my house. I lay there with my eyes closed and I breathed very slowly and I listened. The furniture alone, my daughter-in-law was saying. Some of those pieces are antique. We should have someone look at them before we just donate everything. We're not donating everything, my son said. I want the dining table. My grandmother bought that table. Your grandmother bought it, but your mother always acted like it was hers. Silence. I just think, she continued, that we shouldn't wait too long to get things sorted. She has that storage unit too. I never even knew what she kept in there. We can get into that once we have the death certificate. Once we have the death certificate. Once we have the death certificate. I was alive. I was right there. My heart was beating. It had a monitor right next to me beeping steadily, and I thought, can they not hear that? Can they genuinely not hear that? But they were in the hallway, and they were very certain. I didn't move. I didn't call out. I lay there, and I let myself understand what was happening, really understand it. Not the way you understand something when it first hits you, but the way it settles into your bones. My son, my only child, the boy I raised alone after his father left, the boy I worked double shifts for, who I put through community college and then through the 2 years after that, when he changed his mind and wanted to study business. That boy was in the hallway outside my hospital room, making plans for my furniture. I thought about the last 5 years, about moving in with them after I sold my house in Clearwater, about the way my daughter-in-law had smiled when I offered to pay rent, a smile that didn't reach her eyes, and said, no, don't be silly, your family. About how the guest room became my whole world, about dinners where they talked around me and not to me, about the Christmas she forgot to include my name on the family card they sent out. My son said it was an accident. Maybe it was. But you don't forget the person sleeping down the hall. I thought about all of it, and then I made a decision. I was not going to say a word. The nurse who figured it out first was a woman named Agnes. No, wait. I need to get this right because she matters. Her name was Bet. No, I keep mixing them up in my mind. The one who figured it out, who noticed I was conscious before I let on. Her name was Willa, a small woman, 50s, gray locks pulled back, reading glasses she wore on a chain around her neck. She came in to check my vitals on my 12th morning, and I was lying there with my eyes open, just staring at the ceiling, and she stopped. "How long have you been awake?" she asked. "A while," I said. My voice came out like gravel. I hadn't used it in almost 2 weeks. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she said, "Do you want me to call your family?" I thought about the hallway, about the realtor, about the antique furniture my son wanted because his grandmother bought it, not because he loved me. "Not yet," I said. Willa had a face that didn't give much away. She checked my blood pressure, wrote something on her clipboard, and then said, very quietly, "Okay." That was all. Okay. Like she understood something she wasn't going to ask me to explain. Over the next few days, I spoke only to the medical staff. I ate the terrible food. I did the breathing exercises. I let my body come back to itself slowly, like a room you air out after being closed up too long. And I thought, I had a bank account my son didn't know about. It wasn't a secret exactly, it was just mine. I had opened it 20 years ago when my sister Vera died and left me a small inheritance. Not much. $18,000. I'd added to it over the years, quietly, from birthday money and tax returns. And once, a small settlement from a slip and fall at a grocery store that I'd never mentioned to anyone. $31,000 sitting in an account at a credit union 3 towns over with a debit card in my wallet and my name on nothing else. My wallet was in a bag of personal effects in the closet of my hospital room. I checked one morning while Willa was on break. The wallet was there. The debit card was there. My driver's license was there. I had a name. I had money. I had a plan that was barely a plan, more like a direction. My son called on day 14. The phone was on the bedside table. They'd brought it with my things. And I watched it ring. His name on the screen. I let it ring. He left a voicemail. I listened to it once. He said he was thinking about me. He said the doctors had told him recovery was uncertain. He said, and I remember the exact phrasing because it landed in my chest like something cold. "We're going to have to start making some decisions about next steps." Next steps. That's what I was. A next step. I called Helen that evening. She answered on the second ring and burst into tears when she heard my voice, which made me cry too, the first time since I'd woken up, sitting there in my hospital gown, with a phone pressed to my ear and a tube still in my arm. She said she'd been praying every day. She said the cardinal had come back 3 times that week and she'd been taking it as a sign. I told her I needed a favor. I told her I needed her to not tell anyone I'd called. She didn't ask why. She just said, "Whatever you need, honey." I asked her to go to the credit union and make a withdrawal for me. I told her how much. I told her the account number. I told her the account number. I told her the PIN, the year my son was born, the only number I always remember. She said she'd go in the morning. The next day, I called the credit union myself and had them add Helen to the account temporarily. Made it official over the phone since I was a long-standing customer and they knew my voice. In small towns, people still know your voice. The manager there, a man I'd spoken to maybe 4 times in 20 years, said he was glad to hear I was recovering. Helen went the following morning. She withdrew $8,000 in cash, put it in an envelope, and brought it to my hospital room in her purse, sitting in the plastic chair like she always did, telling me about her garden, and when she left, she squeezed my hand and the envelope was under my pillow. I checked myself out of the hospital on a Thursday. I told the nursing staff I had family picking me up. Willa was working that shift. She walked me to the elevator and pressed the button, and when the doors were about to close, she looked at me with those reading glasses on their chain, and she said, "Take care of yourself." "I will," I said. "I mean it," she said. And the doors closed. I took a cab to a motel on the edge of town, the kind with exterior corridors and a vending machine that takes cash. I paid 3 nights in advance. I lay on the bed in my clothes and I slept for most of 2 days. On the 3rd day, I called a woman from my church named Bea. Not a close friend, just someone who knew everyone in a 6-county radius and had never been able to help herself. I told her I was staying with a cousin for a while, that I needed some space, and could she possibly not mention to anyone that she'd heard from me? I knew she would mention it to someone. That was the point. I needed the right kind of rumor to spread. The kind that said I was alive but distant. that said, "Don't look too hard." I also called an attorney, a woman in the next county whose name I'd seen on a billboard for years. I got her assistant and made an appointment for the following week. I said it was about estate planning. I said I had a complicated family situation. The attorney, whose name was actually on a billboard and who turned out to be exactly as no-nonsense as a billboard attorney should be, listened to everything I told her without interrupting once. When I finished, she was quiet for about 10 seconds. "Your son has not been declared your legal heir," she said. "You are alive. You have all your faculties. You have accounts in your name. He has no legal standing to take anything." "I know," I said. "I'm not asking you to stop him. I'm asking you to help me protect what I have and start over somewhere he can't find me easily." She looked at me over her own reading glasses. "Why do all the women who help you most in this life wear reading glasses?" And she said, "All right, let's get to work." It took 6 weeks. New apartment, different city, 3 hours away. A place I'd been to once for a conference 15 years ago and liked the feel of. A smaller city, tree-lined streets, a farmer's market on Saturdays. The attorney helped me set up a trust for my assets so that nothing ran directly through accounts connected to my old address. I changed my phone number. I forwarded my mail to a P.O. box. I was not hiding. I was not running. That's an important distinction. I could have called my son at any moment and told him I was alive and fine and to leave my things alone. I had that option every single day. I chose not to take it. Because here is what I understood. Lying in that hospital bed, listening to them talk about my furniture. He was not going to change. The conversation I'd have with him, the apologies, the explanations, the promises. I'd had versions of that conversation for 5 years. I had overlooked it, excused it, told myself he was busy, told myself his wife had a different way of doing things, told myself I was being too sensitive. I had made myself small to fit into a life where I wasn't particularly wanted. I was 67 years old. I was alive when I probably shouldn't have been, and I was done making myself small. The apartment was on the 3rd floor of a building with an elevator that worked most of the time. My windows faced east, which meant I woke up to light. I bought a small table and 2 chairs and a second-hand couch from an antique shop 2 blocks away. I bought a coffee maker. I bought plants, a fiddle-leaf fig, and 3 smaller things I can never remember the names of, and I put them on the windowsill where the morning sun hit. I found a library within walking distance. I found a coffee shop where nobody knew me, where I could sit for 2 hours with a cup of tea and a book and no one expected anything from me. I found a Tuesday afternoon watercolor class at the community center. I hadn't painted since college, hadn't let myself think about it. Somehow, in all the years of being someone's mother and someone's wife, and then just someone in a guest room, the instructor was a young man named, I want to say his name because he deserves it, Crispin. 30 years old, patient in a way that young people sometimes are before life makes them less so. He said I had a good eye for color. Nobody had told me I had a good eye for anything in longer than I could remember. I did not contact my son. I did not send word through anyone. I let the silence stand. I know what some people would say. They would say I was cruel, that a mother doesn't do that whatever had happened between us, he deserved to know. And maybe there's something in that. I've turned it over many times, sitting by those east-facing windows in the early morning, and I don't have a clean answer. What I have is this. He had 11 days to visit me in the hospital, and he came twice. He had a voicemail full of words like next steps and decisions. He had a wife who stood in a hallway talking about my antique furniture while I lay on the other side of a wall with a tube in my arm. At some point, a person shows you who they are, and the kindest thing you can do, for them and for yourself, is believe it. Helen visited me in the spring. She took the bus, because of course she did, and she arrived at my door with a bag of homemade snickerdoodles and the news that my son had hired a lawyer after months of not being able to reach me, and that the lawyer had apparently been told by my attorney that I was alive, well, and not interested in contact. "He's angry," Helen said. "I imagine he is," I said. "He called me twice." She settled into one of my 2 chairs and accepted a cup of tea. "I told him I knew you were okay and that you'd been in touch, but that I didn't know where you were, which is true. I didn't know your address until today. Are you going to tell him?" She looked out my east-facing windows at the trees coming into leaf, and she said, "No." We sat for a while with our tea. The fiddle leaf fig had grown 6 inches since I bought it. I told her about the watercolor class, about Crispin, about the farmer's market on Saturdays where a woman sold honey in little hexagonal jars, and I'd bought one every week for 2 months running just to have a reason to talk to someone. "You sound different," Helen said. "Different how?" She thought about it. "Lighter," she said finally. "Like you put something down." I had. That's exactly what it felt like. Like I had been carrying something for so long that I'd stopped noticing the weight of it. And then one day I set it on the ground and walked away, and the absence of it felt, at first, strange, and then gradually, like something close to relief. I haven't spoken to my son. I don't know if I ever will. I know that sounds hard, and it is. There are mornings when I think about calling him, when I think about the little boy he was, the way he used to fall asleep on my shoulder watching Saturday cartoons, and my chest does something complicated that I don't have the right word for. Love doesn't stop just because you stop being willing to be hurt by it. That's something nobody tells you. But I water my plants in the morning light. I go to my watercolor class on Tuesdays. I buy honey from the woman at the farmer's market, and sometimes we stand there for 20 minutes talking about nothing in particular. Helen came back twice since that first visit, and each time she looks at me and says I look well, and I think she means it. I am 67 years old. I have 3 broken ribs that healed, and a scar above my left ear that my hair covers, and plants that are doing better than anyone expected. I woke up when they thought I wouldn't, and this time I decided what to do with that.